Okay, so today we're going to continue working on the reading section. During our last classes, we've been looking at the different question types we have. And so far, we've covered detailed questions, we've covered except questions, inference, purpose, and paraphrase, if I'm not mistaken. So we will continue today, starting with reference questions. So reference questions basically ask you for what a certain pronoun refers to. Pronouns are basically words that take the place or replace the noun. And nouns are pretty much the names of anything. So the names of ideas, the name of a concept, the name of a city, the name of a person, the name of an animal, the name of a group of people. Everything that we name is a noun. And pronouns are the words that replace those nouns. So for example, the pronoun it sometimes replaces an object, an animal, or an idea, a concept. The pronoun he replaces a male person. The pronoun this refers to something plural. So basically those are pronouns and nouns. And what this question is gonna do is it's gonna ask you what a certain pronoun refers to. So for example, what does the word he refers to? And you have to say it refers to my father, for example. So it's pretty simple, I would say, although you do need to have a little bit of grammar knowledge. To be honest, it comes more naturally, I would say. Most students are able to answer these questions without any problems. So I would say it's even probably the easiest question of them all in the reading section. So let's see with an example. Can you maybe read the question, Elizabeth, please?
The word those in paragraph 2 refers to.
Okay, thank you very much. Now here's the word. I'll give you 1 minute to try to answer this question. Let me know what you think, and then we'll discuss. Okay. So what do you think the answer to this question would be?
Letter C.
Okay, letter C in a translation. Okay, so let's analyze this a little bit. The first thing that I'm going to ask you to do, and the first tip that I'm going to give you, is always analyze the pronoun. What do I mean by analyze it? See whether it's a plural or a singular pronoun, whether it refers to a female or a male, gender. In this case, for example, the word those, is it singular or plural?
Plural.
Plural, right? So if it's plural, then that means that it has to be referring to something plural. For example, if I have a pen, so it's just one, I can say this pen, right? This pen or that pen if it's far away. But if I have 2 pens, now since it's plural, I have to say these pen. And if they are far, far away, I could say those pen. So the word those has to be referring to something plural. That means more than one. Now, if you look at the options, gene pool is singular. Survival is singular. Natural selection is also singular. So actually, the only possible answer to this question is traits and characteristics, because it's the only it's the only plural noun, right? The word those has to be referring to something plural. And the only plural option that we have is option D, traits and characteristics. All of the above are singular. So in this case, traits and characteristics will be the correct choice. Now that's one thing that you can do. But of course, there are going to be cases in which you will have more than one plural response, and you have to just read. There's no other way of answering this question. So what do you do in those cases? You need to read. Now, what do you read? You start by reading the sentence that contains the word. In that case, the sentence that contains the word starts in over and it finishes here. So you start reading that sentence. It says, over time, beneficial traits and characteristics that promote survival will be kept in the gene pool, while those that harm survival will be selected against. And you start analyzing that sentence and you realize that it has a connector that says while, that shows contrast. So you know that what is before while has to be the opposite of what's after while. Now, if you look at the nouns in this sentence, the only nouns we have are traits and characteristics, that's one. Survival is another, because promote is a third. Gene pool is another one. Those are the nouns. So look at the parallel structure. The ones that promote survival are kept in the gene pool. And the ones that harm survival, harm is the opposite of promote. Harm survival, promote survival are selected against, are eliminated from the gene pool. So if you try to replace these options, beneficial traits and characteristics that promote survival will be kept in the gene pool. While the gene pool that harms survival, it doesn't make sense, right? Because the gene pool doesn't harm survival. The gene pool is where the characteristics are kept. Now, the survival that harms survival, it makes no sense. And the natural selection that harms survival, again, it makes no sense because this isn't even an option. This isn't even a noun in the sentence. So it cannot be natural selection either. The only option from context and from grammar is option D. First, because it's a plural pronoun that has to be referring to a plural thing, those, and the only plural option is D. The other ones are singular, right? So just by eliminating the other options or by comparing or like replacing the words, the only one that makes sense and that meets the grammar part is option D. Okay, so those are some tips for this question. Always make sure that you see the grammar part first and then you analyze the sentence. So, is that okay so far? Do you have any questions so far? Okay then, let's see the rest. So those were reference questions. Now the next one that we're gonna see is vocabulary questions. And unfortunately for vocabulary questions, to be honest, the most important thing is to just have a good vocabulary, have a good academic vocabulary. It's really important that you guys have that vocabularies to answer these questions, because if you don't, then you are going to be able to use a couple of strategies, you're going to be able to do some things, but at the end of the day, you won't be 100% certain that you're choosing the right option if you don't know the word. So my first suggestion for vocabulary questions is going to be, please expand your academic vocabulary. How do you do that? I have 3 tips for you. The first one is going to be study adjectives. From what I've seen, most of the time, the words that you find here are adjectives. So study like maybe 50 adjectives that are synonyms for the most common ones. So synonyms of good and bad, of intelligent, synonyms of important, of ugly and pretty. Those are the things that matter the most, adjectives. The second thing is going to be study prefixes and suffixes. You guys need to know how they are, how they work, what they mean. Prefixes and suffixes are basically those portions of the word that are added to the end or to the beginning of a word that add meaning or that change the meaning of the word root, the root of the word. For example, I don't know, let's have an example of, I don't know. Let's say, okay, child. You know, that's the root of the word. Now, if you add the suffix less to that word, it becomes childless. And if you guys know that the meaning of less is the lack of something, because that's what the suffix less means. Less means the lack of something. So if I say, this woman is childless, that means that this woman doesn't have any children. There's a lack of children, right? It's this home is childless. They don't have any children, right? For example, another one, fearless, let's say. Fear, you guys know what fear is. And if you add the suffix less, then basically means lack of fear, right? So somebody that's fearless is somebody that's not afraid of anything. So just by studying and by understanding how these suffixes or prefixes work, you can give meaning to different words and you can expand your vocabulary very quickly. So that's the second tip that I can give you for vocabulary. And finally, the third thing that I could say is make sure that you don't memorize word lists, that you don't do flashcards or anything. What you guys should do is study words with context. So read as much academic content as you can. Read as much academic content as you can and try to understand the meaning of the words from the context. Because that's another strategy that you guys need to, another technique that you guys need to master. Understanding words from context. Okay, guys? So those are some things that I could say. That's like that was an introductory thing for vocabulary questions. But let's see vocabulary questions on its own. So Carolina, please, could you read the question we have here?
Okay. The word ingenuity in paragraph 2 is closest in meaning to letter A, ambition, letter B, sincerity, C, faith, D, cleverness.
Okay, Carolina, thanks. So without reading anything, just the question and the options, because the first thing that you guys need to do in this case is to read the options, not like the other questions where it's recommended not to read the options first. For these questions specifically, read the options. So what do you guys think? Do you know the word ingenuity? Can you maybe associate it to one of the options? Is it a synonym of one of the options from your understanding? Do you guys know the word?
Neither do.
Cleverness.
Cleverness, okay, yes. Do you agree, Carolina?
Oui. Sí.
Okay, great. So, are you guys very sure? Are you 100% or at least 90% that it's cleverness? If you guys are pretty sure that you know the word, you can use it in context, you've seen it before, you know the word, then choose the one that you think is the synonym and move on. It should take you less than 10 seconds. If you guys are sure about the word. If you guys are not, or if you don't know the word, then you need to try to understand the word from context. How do you do that? By asking yourselves what the main idea of the text is. So in this paragraph, what would you guys say the main idea of the text is? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to try to figure out. Let me know what you think. What is the main idea of this paragraph? So what do you guys think that the main idea of this text is? What would you say the main idea of this paragraph is? So basically, this paragraph here talks about the factors that led to the development of the city, right? If you guys read the first sentences, that's where you can find that information. How did this tremendous development take place? Why did it happen in the Teotihuacan Valley? Among the main factors are, and they start pretty much enlisting the factors, and then they talk about other factors as well. So everything here revolves around the factors, the reasons, the elements that led to the development of the city. And why am I asking you that? Because everything here is going to have a certain relationship to that idea, including our word ingenuity. So in this case, the ingenuity and foresightness of Teotihuacan's elite is actually one of the factors that contributed to the development of Teotihuacan, isn't it? So when you guys know that, you're understanding or you're relating the word to the meaning or to the purpose of the entire paragraph. And that's what you guys have to do, because that is gonna, or it should help you eliminate at least a couple of options. For example, if you ask yourselves, would it be the sincerity of the elite that led to the development of the city? I don't know, right? It doesn't make too much sense. Would it be the faith of the elite? I don't think so either. But if you guys think about the ambition of the elite, for example, it makes more sense, right? Because the ambition of the elite is what led to the development of the city. That makes a lot of sense to me. And same thing happens with cleverness. The cleverness of the elite led or influenced the development of the city. It makes more sense to me than options B and C. So just by context, you could start eliminating a couple of options. And also, for example, in this case, we have another word. It says the ingenuity and foresightness of the Teotihuacan's elite. Do you guys know what foresightness means? Does anyone know? What is foresightness? Basically, something that actually this is very related to what I was just telling you. Remember, I was talking about prefixes, suffixes. So this is an example of that. We have foresightness. Does anyone know what sight means? What is sight? It's view, right? It's vista. It comes from the verb see. And this is a prefix. For is a prefix that basically is related to before, to the future. So foresight is related to seeing the future before it happens. For example, other words that contain the same prefix are like forecast, the weather forecast, la predicción del clima, weather forecast, foreshadowing, forehead, forearm. They are all related to before. So foresightness, and this ness basically tells you that it's a noun. Same thing as cleverness, right? So clever is somebody that's intelligent, and cleverness is that quality of being clever. So foresightedness is the quality or the ability of seeing the future, of making predictions about the future and taking provisions for the future. So if you guys think about it, foresightedness is related to cleverness, right? To being smart, to being intelligent, to being wise, knowledgeable. So cleverness is the correct choice. And what I'm telling you is, again, to summarize, first read the question, try to see if you know the word, if it's familiar for you. If you know the word, choose the one that you think is the one and go move forward. But if you don't, then you can maybe try to see the context, and that will help you eliminate a couple of options and at least narrow down your choices, right? It's like that will leave you with many more options, and in and thus you will have more chances of getting it right if you guess. Okay, guys? Those are vocabulary questions, but again, if you don't know the word, you're never going to be 100% certain that you are choosing the correct option. Si no saben la palabra, por más que puedan reducir sus opciones, nunca van a estar 100% seguros de qué es eso, ¿verdad? So it's about expanding vocabulary, but also if you don't know the word, trying to see the context. Okay, guys, any questions? Is that clear? Okay, guys, so we have 2 more questions to go. The next one we're gonna do is called insert text. And as the name says, you guys are gonna have to insert a sentence into a paragraph. So Elizabeth, please, could you read the instructions?
In paragraph 1 of the passage, there is a missing sentence. The paragraph is repeated below and shows for letters A, B, C, and D that indicate where the following sentence could be added.
Okay, thank you. So yes, this is a sentence that's additional, and basically they give you 4 options, 4 little boxes or 4 spaces where you could add this sentence, where you could place it. For example, you have this as option A, so maybe you could move this sentence there. You could place it here in option B, option C, or option D. You have those 4 options, and you gotta choose the one that you feel fits better. You know, the one that you feel, where you feel this sentence belongs. Okay, guys? So I will give you 2 or 3 minutes to try to answer this question, and then we'll discuss the strategies for this specific question. Right, guys? Go ahead. Hey guys, so what do you think? What would you add that sentence?
Maybe letter B.
Okay, maybe letter B. Yes, do you agree, Carolina?
I think it could be letter D, the last one.
Okay. So let's see. First thing, what you technically have to do always is analyze what the sentence is about and look for another sentence that talks about the same or something similar, something related. Because the sentences in a paragraph have to have a certain flow. They have to flow naturally, right? And the ideas have to be related in a way. So you need to find the one that is the closest, like the most related to this sentence. Now, what is this sentence about? It talks about the fact that, let's generalize a little bit, that things from Teotihuacan were discovered, were found in sites that were really far away from Teotihuacan itself, right? Because it says in sites as far away as the lowlands, the Guatemalan highlands, in different places that were far away from Teotihuacan. That is the main idea. The things from Teotihuacan have been found in those places that were far away from Teotihuacan itself. Now you need to start reading around until you find one sentence that talks about something similar. And when you find that sentence, you need to try to follow the order of the sentence to see which one comes first and which one comes after that. Now, some tips that I can give you guys that are going to be really useful. The first tip is that usually ideas come in pairs. They don't come separately. What do I mean by that? Most of the time, you guys have a general idea first, and then you have the details, the explanation, the examples, the anything else that explains that idea a little bit more. So you have the idea first, the general idea, and then the details. Now, is this sentence here a general idea, or does it include details? What do you guys think?
Details?
Yes, exactly. It talks about specific details, right? Specific things that were found from Teotihuacan in specific places. So if you have a detailed sentence, that means that before this sentence, there should be another one that contains a general idea. So, and that is obviously related. So let's start looking for that. First sentence that we have here, it talks about the population of Teotihuacan, and it talks about the size of Teotihuacan. It's not related to this, right? Not related to what happens outside of Teotihuacan. This is about the inside of Teotihuacan. Then they talk about the things that Teotihuacan had, the apartment complexes, the market, the industrial workshops. So again, it's not related. They are talking about the development of the city inside the city, right? The things that they had, the commerce they had, the architecture and that stuff. Our next sentence talks about the fact that much planning and control were involved in the expansion and ordering of the metropolis. Again, it's not very related, though, even though it has the word expansion, I don't know. It's not too related to what we have here. And then the next one talks about the fact that Teotihuacan, or the city, had contacts with different parts of Mesoamerica, with most parts of Mesoamerica. And that is related, right? Isn't that related? Because it talks about the same. It talks about how this city had contacts with other parts of Mesoamerica, which is basically what this sentence is proving. So I would totally say that this is the general idea that this sentence is trying to explain. And if you guys know, another tip that I can give you is to make a good use of the transitions that you have or that are given to you. Because transitions show you the relationship amongst ideas. So for example, the word or the transition in fact is used to explain in a more detailed way something that was said before. That is basically the use of in fact. When you use in fact, it means because you're explaining an idea more in a more in-depth way. So you know that this idea here has to be before the word in fact or transition in fact, which is clearly this idea that we have in the last sentence of the paragraph. So yes, I do agree with you, Carolina, it has to be option D, because it's an explanation of what happened, of what the author said before, right? That the city had economic and religious contacts. Because look at it from this perspective. How do they know that the city had contacts with other parts of Mesoamerica? Because they found things from Teotihuacan in these places, right? So this is like the proof, the evidence of what they said here. It's the continuation of what they said here. And it is the only sentence that has relationship in terms of the ideas with this sentence. Okay, guys? Is that okay? Do you all see why option D is the correct option? Do you have any questions so far? No, all clear? Okay, guys, perfect. So these are insert text questions. Now, finally, we have the last but not least, summary questions. Summary questions are always the one that you get at last. They are a little bit longer and they do require more time. But probably the biggest and most useful tip that I can give you for this question is please don't waste too much time in this question. What happens is, this is the last question, right? The 10th question. So, by the time that you get to this question, you have already used most of the time that you had for each passage. You have 18 minutes per passage, right? So let's say that you have answered the first 9 questions in 16 minutes. That means that you have only 2 minutes to answer this question. If you have 2 minutes to answer this question, then answer the question in those 2 minutes. Please don't use time from the next passage for this question, because that's a terrible idea. You're going to end up running out of time. So use the time that you have. If you only have 1 minute to answer this question, use your 1 minute. If you only have 20 seconds, use your 20 seconds. But don't take time from the next passage to answer this question. That's something that you shouldn't be doing. Now, second thing, don't read everything again. I don't know why, but some students make the mistake of going back to the text and rereading everything again, the entire passage, even though it is true that they're going to be asking you for a summary of the entire text. There's no need of reading everything again. Why? Because by the time that you get to the 10th question, you have already read all of the paragraphs. You have read the entire text already. Remember that each question requires you to read a different paragraph, right? So in question 1, when you were answering the first question, you read the first paragraph, let's say. For the third question, you read the second paragraph. For the fifth, you read the third, and then you read the fourth. So by the time that you get to the 10th question, you've already read everything. So there's no need of going back and reading in detail everything again. Okay, guys? So don't waste your time. Don't reread everything. There's no need of doing that. And second thing that I could say is eliminate options aggressively. Okay, but let's start by reading the instructions first. So Carolina, please, can you read the instructions for us?
Okay. Directions. An introductory sentence for a brief summary of the passage is provided below. Complete the summary by selecting the 3 answer choices that express the most important ideas in the passage. Some sentences do not belong in the summary because they express ideas that are not presented in the passage or are not minor ideas in the passage. This question is worth 2 points.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Great. So basically, that's what you have to do. They give you 6 options this time from A to F, A, B, C, D, E, F. And you guys need to choose 3 options, 3 answer choices that you feel express the most important ideas in the entire passage. Okay? There are going to be certain options that are not correct because those contain false information. Those contain information that was not presented in the text, or, and this is very common, you're going to have a few options that are focusing on specific details on minor ideas, but you don't need to choose the ones that contain minor ideas. They may be true, they may be mentioned, they may be correct, but you're not looking for correct ideas, right? You're looking for the best summaries of the text, the sentences that summarize the text best. So I will give you guys 2 or 3 minutes to try to answer this question. And I want you to tell me what you think. I will give you more tips after you guys let me know what you think. Okay, guys, so what would you say? What are the three options that you guys would choose?
Well, actually, I don't remember the passage, but I consider that it could be letter A, C, and probably F.
Elizabeth, what about you?
Letter C, and E and F.
Okay, E and F. Okay, guys, well, we'll see. First of all, what I was telling you is eliminate options aggressively. Now, how do you eliminate options aggressively? By eliminating the ones that seem to be too specific to be correct. Remember that even if you haven't read the text, you know the title, right? It was Teotihuacan's rise, or the rise of Teotihuacan. So it's about the development of the city. And if you guys remember a little bit of what every paragraph was about, they talk about different factors that led to the development, right? They talk about, like, in a paragraph, they talked about the resources, they talked about like a volcanic eruption that happened in a different city. And they talk about different factors, right? They talk about a little bit of everything related to the development, to the growth, to the rise of the city of Teotihuacan. So based on that information, if you take a look at options like, for example, option D, you could say that that's too specific to be correct, because it says, as a result of its large number of religious shrines, by the first century AD, Teotihuacan became the most influential religious centers in all Mesoamerica. So they are focusing on only one aspect of Teotihuacan, on Teotihuacan's religion. But this is not about Teotihuacan's religion, right? Maybe they mentioned something about religion, maybe they talked about it, but it's not a main idea. It's probably a minor idea, right? I don't know if it's true, but to be honest, I really doubt that this is true. How? Because there's a common trap in the TOEFL test that is about the extremes. When you have options that are very extreme, like Teotihuacan is the biggest city in the entire world, is the most influential religious center in all of Mesoamerica. This thing was the biggest thing in the world. When you have those superlatives, extremes, always, never, those are usually not correct. They are very known for being TOEFL traps. But aside from that, this is too specific. It's focusing only on religion. But this was about everything. It wasn't just about religion. So I don't think this is going to be correct. Now, same thing happens with option B and with option F, right? Look at option F. It talks about only population and immigrants, right? It talks about, although many immigrants settled in Teotihuacan between AD 150 and 700, the increasing threat of forest labeled discouraged further settlement and limited Teotihuacan's population growth. They talk about population growth. Now, it's too specific. They talk about specific time, a specific aspect of Teotihuacan. And not only that, but I also remember that in general, they talk about population growth in a good way, in a positive way, because we know that this city grew in tremendously, that they had a lot of people living there. So limited population growth, I don't know, this seems like something too negative, too contrary to what the text says. And again, it's too specific, right? It talks about one specific thing in one specific time. So it's not option F. Now, if you guys compare those options to, for example, option C, as you guys said, it's completely different, because option C talks about many different things. And it has the word development, which is really key. They say several factors may account for Teotihuacan's extraordinary development. This is good because it was a positive thing. They talk about a great development, including location, natural resources, irrigation, the elite, rival communities. So look at how they talk about different factors. They talk about different things. They're not just focusing on the obsidian, for example. They're focusing on everything, right? A little bit of everything. And they talk about the Teotihuacan's development in a good way. And development, we know that that was a key idea. So option C is definitely one of them. Now, another very good tip that I can give you, if you guys happen to have some extra time, or let's say you have a little bit of time to continue answering this question, and if you want to read something, what you guys could read is the introduction and the conclusion. And remember that when I was in our first reading class, what I told you was, please, in the beginning, don't read everything. What you can do is read the first and last paragraphs and scan the text a little bit, read the first sentences, and that's it. Most of the time, if you guys have ideas in the options that correspond to the reading, to the introduction and conclusion, or to the first and last paragraphs, those are more likely, more probable to be the ones. For example, in this case, look at how in the first paragraph, the introduction, they say it had over 2,000 apartment complexes, a great market, a large number of industrial workshops, an administrative center, a number of massive religious edifices, a regular grid pattern of streets and buildings. Clearly, much planning and central control will involve in the expansion and ordering of these great metropolis. And look at how that idea is replicated in one of the options. Because if you guys noticed, I don't know if you did, but if you notice, option A is basically the same idea. It says the number and sophistication of the architectural, administrative, commercial, and religious features of Teotihuacan indicate the existence of centralized planning and control. Right? Remember how they talked about the workshops, the streets, the buildings, the religious edifices. They talk about all of that. And they talk about planning and control. So it makes sense, right? It is option A as well. Option A is definitely one of them. Same thing happens with the conclusion. Remember the last paragraph in the text? It talks about how every factor wasn't working on its own, how every factor was connected, how every factor had a positive effect on the others. So they say the picture of Teotihuacan is a classic picture of positive feedback among obsidian mining and working trade population growth. It was like how everything had a positive effect on everything, right? So obsidian had a good influence on population growth, that had a good influence on irrigation and so forth. So if you guys take a look at the last, at option E, basically it covers the same idea, right? It says in many important areas, from the obsidian industry to religious tourism, Teotihuacan's success and prosperity typified a classic positive feedback cycle. So basically option E says all of the many important areas from the obsidian industry to religion, going over many more things, Teotihuacan typified a classic positive feedback cycle. So this is an idea from the conclusion, this is one from the introduction, and look at how all of them are very broad, very general. They don't focus on one specific thing like religion or population, but instead they talk about a bit of everything that was mentioned, right? So those would be some tips that I can give you for these questions, for summary questions, but mainly don't spend too much time, don't waste time, don't take time from the next question or the next passage. That's not a good thing to do. Okay, guys? So what do you think now? Do you have any questions? Is it clear? Any comments? No? Is everything clear? You guys sure? Yes? No questions? Because with this, we are now done with the reading section. We've looked at the 10 different question types, and we're just gonna practice tomorrow. We're gonna be working on a different set, and this time we're not gonna go question by question looking at strategies or anything. You guys are gonna be the ones who are gonna be implementing all of these strategies and techniques we saw today and in these past few classes. And we're gonna be answering complete sets. You know, we're gonna do it faster so that we simulate the real reading part. Guys? So no questions really? Is everything clear? Okay, guys, good. Hold on. So I'm gonna send you guys this PDF thread because you have other interesting practices, and these are officially from the ETS, which means that it's great practice. You know, it's something very accurate to what you have in the real test. You should always try practicing with official material. So I'm sending you guys that link. And that's gonna be it, I guess, for today's session. If you don't have questions, please don't forget to complete today's daily survey. It should be on your screens before you go. And I will be seeing you all tomorrow. We're gonna practice, as we said, the reading part. So I hope to see you guys there.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye, see you, Carolina.